A hearty morning and a warm welcome to everyone joining us today for the International Media Conference, the Ican 6 2023.
I am Ican
And I am Gunjan Sachdeva, and we are PhD scholars at the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Mriirs. We are extremely delighted for this opportunity to be the Sutradhar of today's event organized by the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, School of Media Studies and Humanities, Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, the only A++ accredited private university in Delhi NCR in association with Delhi Metropolitan Education, affiliation to GGSIP University, Delhi and Deccan University, Melbourne, Australia.
The International Media Conference, Ican 6, is a collaborative effort between Delhi Metropolitan Education and Deccan University, Australia. The conference is supported by the Indian Council of Social Science Research, ICSSR, the International Association for Media and Communication Research, Daffodil International University, Dhaka, Deccan University, and the Global Media Education Council, who have partnered with us to make this conference a resounding success. The core objective behind organizing these international conferences is to provide a platform for researchers, academicians, and students to showcase their research work, engage in academic discourse, and foster collaboration. Through technical sessions, plenary sessions, panel discussions, master classes, and workshops, this conference will facilitate an exchange of ideas and stimulate innovation. By bringing together academia and industry professionals, we hope to generate new insights that contribute to the betterment of society.
This year, the theme of the conference is Identity, Culture and Agenda-Driven Newscast. And for the past 3 years, the theme has been explored, discussed and analyzed through research paper presentations, master classes by subject experts and panels by industry stalwarts. Today is the 4th day of the conference, Ican 6, where scholars, academicians and students have gathered to learn and share their valuable insights and contribute to the field of media studies.
Before we begin with our main program, we would like to begin with the traditional lamp lighting ceremony, symbolizing the dispelling of darkness and the acquisition of knowledge in our Indian tradition. This ritual signifies our commitment to illuminating minds and fostering a spirit of learning and enlightenment. I would request the dignitaries to kindly come up on stage for the lamp lighting ceremony.
वीणावादिनि वरदे वीणावादिनि वरदे प्रिय स्वतंत्र रवमिय मंत्रण प्रिय स्वतंत्र रवमिय मंत्रण भारत में भर दे वरदे कलश भेद तम हरि प्रकाश भय कलश भेद तम हरि प्रकाश भय जगमग जग कर दे
we are privileged to have esteemed dignitaries and professionals from the media industry present with us today. Our sincere greetings to the esteemed co-organizers, Professor Mriirs Saxena sir, Professor Sushmita Bala, along with the team DME and Dr. Vikrant Kishore from Nottingham University, Shanghai.
We are grateful for the presence of our respected Dean Ma'am, Professor Maithili Ganjoo, and KG Suresh sir, whose support and guidance has been instrumental in making this event a reality. All of our gurus' vision and dedication has paved the way for this conference, which aims to bridge boundaries and explore the diverse dimensions of cultural identity in the realm of media. I would like to extend an invitation to Dr. Kiran Bala ma'am, who is the head of department, JMC, to formally welcome the dignitaries and set the tone for the conference.
Thank you, Meka. Thank you so much. I can do things you cannot. You can do things which I cannot. And we can do great things. A very good morning to all of you with this quote of Mother Teresa. On behalf of Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, School of Media and Humanities, Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, I welcome you all. While we are hosting this world's first international conference across boundaries with hashtag Culture Identity for Diversity, Ican 6. A warm and heartfelt welcome to all of you, those who are gathered here in Mriirs campus to take this 7 days long conference, take this 7 days long academic discourse forward. On the 4th day of this conference, on this remarkable day, it's my honor to welcome you all. And I hope we'll continue with this journey of knowledge, innovation, and collaboration. Ican is serving as a platform for media education and industry to converge, exchange ideas, and create new knowledge. I welcome all the dignitaries present here, Dr. Vikrant Kishore, Mr. Nimish Kapoor, Professor KG Suresh sir, Ms. Prachi Garg, Kalyani ma'am, Professor Mriirs Saxena, Dr. Sushmita Bala ma'am, and we have been associated with them so long. And I welcome Dr. Ruhilal, our session chair, Dr. Manasvi Maheshwari, our session chair, faculty members, students, and research scholars from our university and other campuses. All of you, I hope you will bring a lot of experience, lot of knowledge, lot of research findings with you today. And throughout this conference, I think we learn from each other. So now when we are hosting, we are looking forward that next time when we'll be having this Ican 7, we'll be having it at next level. Because I have seen the journey of this conference from Ican 2, Ican 6, and hope to, go till 10, 11, 12, infinite. So I hope that the insights and expertise of all the panelists in today's panel discussions that we have planned, India's preparedness for SDG 3, health and science communication, I hope this will also shape the conversations and discussions around that we'll have in today's scenario. And I hope that whatever we will discuss today, that will help us in, improving our research, what our scholars are doing, what our faculty members are doing. I would like to express my gratitude to Manav Rachna Management, Vice Chancellor, DG Sir, DME Media School, those who collaborated us, our Dean, Dr. Maithili Ganjoo, for their support. They have provided us so much support that we are organizing this conference today. So once again, a very warm welcome to all of you. And I hope we'll have great learnings today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Once again, I extend a warm welcome to all participants and wish you a fruitful and enriching experience at Ican 6. Let us embark on this journey of knowledge and discovery, united by the shared goal of advancing the field of media studies and shaping a brighter future for all. Now, I would like to request Kiran Bala ma'am to felicitate Dr. Vikrant Kishore sir. Now I request Maithili ma'am to felicitate Mr. K.G. Suresh sir. Professor K.G. Suresh sir. Okay. I request Maithili ma'am to felicitate Ms. Kalyani Rajan ma'am. I request Maithili ma'am to felicitate Mr. Nimesh Kapoor sir. Now I request Kiran Bala ma'am to felicitate Ms. Prachi Garg ma'am. Now I request Maithili ma'am to felicitate Mr. Mriirs Saxena sir. Now I request Kiran Bala ma'am to felicitate Professor Sushma Bala ma'am. Sushmita Bala ma'am, sorry.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, yes, it's done, ma'am. Thank you. Now I would request Professor Mriirs Saxena, sir, to introduce the DME collaboration with Manav Rachna for Ican. But before that, I would like to introduce sir. Sir is a journalist turned media educator. As a media practitioner, he has worked on all media platforms, print, radio, TV, films, and digital during his long career. He wears so many hats. He is a prolific writer, eloquent orator, an astute political analyst, and an authority on public policy and governance. He is an independent thinker and a development expert. He impresses as a teacher and influences as a mentor. Dr. Saxena has a master's degree in 4 subjects: political science, journalism and mass communication, law and management. At present, he is a professor and dean at the Media School of Delhi Metropolitan Education, DME, Noida, affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, New Delhi. He is also director, DME Studios and Production, director IQAC convener, DME NAC committee and director, International Relations in DME. Sir, please.
Thank you. All the dignitaries who are here, what to say, I mean, whether as a host or whether as a guest, I should start, because the way we have been proceeding, taking this Ican forward, the international conference that we started in 2018. So obviously it was a modest beginning, but gradually things started expanding, growing, and during the Corona period, that was a roadblock, could be a roadblock, but then that proved something which helped us to grow. And in 2020, during the Corona period, initially we had to put off the conference because it was in the 3rd week of March only when the national lockdown happened. So at the 11th hour, we have to put it off. Hoping that within a month or 2 the things will subside and we will be able to hold the conference, but that never happened, and finally we decided to have it completely in the online mode while everybody was sitting at home. That itself was a big challenge because that happened all of a sudden. Nobody was prepared how to handle that, but still we did that. So it came out to be a 10-day conference, because what happens when we are organizing a conference for 3 or 4 days, then multiple sessions are happening at the same time. But in online mode, we were having one session after another, so it turned out to be a 10-day conference, but that happened successfully. And the one big thing that happened, and we were able to connect to the scholars based in different countries. So that in fact gave us the idea that we can take it to beyond boundaries that way. In again 2021, we again planned it in the physical space. Then second wave happened during that time. Again we had to put off it for 2 months, and then ultimately we had to have it in the online space completely, again 10 days. Last year we tried to make it in a blended mode, in a hybrid mode, but then more sessions were in the online and less sessions were in the on-site space. This year we were determined to have more things in the physical space, and about 60-70% part of the conference is in the physical space, and 30% approximate is in the online space, particularly the sessions where the scholars are involved from different countries. Those sessions we are holding in the online space. One more thing that we try to do this time, though we started that in the first edition only, we tried to have collaborations of different kinds with different educational institutions, with universities, with international organizations. Like in the very first edition of the conference, the UNESCO supported us, then this SIMCA supported us, So that continued, and from the second edition, Deakin University Melbourne has been the most solid partner with us, thanks to Dr. Vikrant Kishore, who was there in Deakin University. At the moment, he is in Nottingham University, China campus. So that also gave a lot of strength to the conference. And then every year, that number of partners continue to increase. I would also like to make a mention of Professor K.G. Suresh, who also has been with us right from the beginning, while he was Director General of Indian Institute of Mass Communication. And since that time, he has been the Vice Chancellor in Makalal Chaturvedi National University of Journalism and Communication. Since that time also, he has a very solid support to us. And this time, when we decided to have it at different locations, so another location after this is Makalal Chaturvedi University, wherein we are having one-day session in 21st of July. So this was completely out of the box thing which came to my mind, but thanks to the support of all my friends and senior scholars, it appears happening. And this day, when we are in Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, so Professor Ganjoo and Professor Kiranwala, they extended a helping hand. That is how we decided to have it here. So this, I believe, with joint effort, this has written a new history as far as collaborations is concerned. Most of the time when we do something, collaborations are either on paper or it is for the sake of it. But we have translated it on the ground. And there are research scholars who have submitted papers for the conference. They have even made the presentations in DME. So this crisscross is happening, that the research scholar of one place is making a presentation at another place, like in Makalal, the students of and the teachers of DME, and then scholars from different places, they are coming to Bhopal to make the presentation. So this is a different kind of beginning that we have made, and I hope that this will go a long way, the way we are proceeding, because today's world is that of collaborations. Alone, nobody can do anything, and ultimately, if this kind of collaboration is happening, this is ultimately to the benefit of media education, to media industry, and a lot of such exchanges will happen, wherein we will be able to create a storehouse of knowledge. I must also make a mention that right from the beginning we did some very such kind of decisions that if a conference is happening, it should not be over simply by having some sessions. There has to be some storehouse of knowledge, so nothing go waste. That was the approach right from the beginning, and every time whenever Ican is happening, we are producing at least 35 to 40 videos. And all these videos are being uploaded on YouTube. So if I go back and look at as to what all happens, or anybody would like to know as to what happened in which edition of Ican, so there are at least more than 100 videos on the YouTube of different sessions and all. So that is why whenever we plan a session, whether it's a plenary or whether it's a panel discussion, it's all decided from the perspective of production. So always our production team in DME is very strong. So we always look into कि अगर ये event हो रहा है हम इसको एक कैमरे से cover करेंगे, दो से करेंगे, तीन से करेंगे, what will be the location and all. So we work very minutely on such kind of things so that the production quality is also good. If we have produced a video and it's uploaded on YouTube, it should be worth watching. So that is one important area. Another important area on which we worked right from the beginning, that was the production of books. So whatever paper presentations happen, and when the final paper is submitted, we publish it. So every year 4 or 5 books are being published. Till Ican 5 we have published 24 books, so carrying at least 800 plus papers. So publication is again a very important thing in research and academics, so we try to take care of that aspect as well. and also the proceedings. Proceedings means the abstracts of the papers we publish separately, independent of these books. So those proceedings also come out with ISBN. So any scholar who is submitting a paper and making a presentation will get 2 ISBN publications simply by participating in the conference. So all that is has become possible. In the time to come, we will further try to take it to the next level with the support of all the people who matter in the field of media education, and with the support of all media educators, researchers in DME, in other institutions who have collaborated with us. IEC SSR has also extended a helping hand. They have a policy that they provide the support after every second year. So in 2021 they supported us, but this time they supported us in a better way because they have that experience what all we did year before last. So this year again they came forward providing a helping hand, and that is how this Ican 6 is before us. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Before we move on, I would also like to introduce Sushmita Bala ma'am, who is also a co-convener of this conference. She is an accomplished teacher and trainer equipped with rich experience in the media industry and academics for more than 3 decades. At present, she is serving Delhi Metropolitan Education, Noida, as head of media school. She has taught in colleges of GGS IP University, MBICEM and WIPS. As visiting faculty, she has been associated with Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, YMCA Media Center and India Today Media Institute for a long time. She has 14 books to her credit as an author, co-author, chapter contributor and editor. She has presented more than 20 papers at national international conferences. She is a widely traveled person, having participated in conferences in China, Australia, the United States, Spain, France and Dubai. Thank you for coming, ma'am.
Now I request Dr. Vikrant Kishore sir for his keynote address. First of all, for that I would like to introduce sir. Dr. Vikrant Kishore sir is an associate professor in the School of International Communications at the University of Nottingham. He is an honorary fellow at the School of Communication and Creative Arts, Deakin University. He has authorized and edited books on Indian cinema, celebrity culture and intangible culture heritage. He is the Director, Postgraduate Research, School of International Communications, Director, Short Film Research Priority Area, the Institute of Asia and Pacific Studies, the University of Nottingham.
Good morning to you all, and thank you to you both for the nice introduction. And yeah, I didn't know I was doing the keynote, but I'll make it a keynote. Well, firstly, I acknowledge all who are present here. I pay my gratitude to all the esteemed guests, Vice Chancellor K.G. Suresh, Professor Maithili Ganjoo, and for Kiran Bala ma'am for inviting me, and for the long collaboration that Mriirs and Sushmita ji has bestowed upon us, which has been so fruitful and so energizing, and something which I keep looking forward to. It has been a pleasure that we have been able not only to continue this collaboration sitting there in Australia for 5 years, and now in the 6th year I'm there in Nottingham, and I'm also with Deakin still as an honorary there, and we continue to do work and bringing in Nottingham as well in the picture. So one of the key things which Mriirs ji talked about was about collaboration. And it's also, you know, when I read something like here, Institute of Research and Studies, nothing warms my heart where the focus is on research, and an institute which says out loud that their focus is on research and studies. That should be the direction, because this is one thing which has been majorly missing in Indian media institutes. Okay, I'm not saying from India, but Indian media institutes. Why I say that? Because my grounding has been, I started my career in India, I started my career back with a television news channel, which I hate to watch these days, but still I'll take its name, Z News. I started with my career as a correspondent there. And then I moved into academia, from teaching to LSR Lady Shri Ram College, to Rai University, to finally settling at IP College and heading its as an academic in charge of IP College, and having my own production house as well. And then about now almost 18 years back, I moved to Australia, and then I decided to stay there. And it gave me a good understanding and a kind of a good insight into being into a teaching zone, which was very much kind of a teacher-led kind of a study environment, of course, which comes from a very old tradition of Guru Shishya Parampara, which is good, which I really like. But going to Australia, I struggled a bit when I was teaching. In fact, it happened the day I reached Australia. My visa was granted a little late, almost 2 weeks late. And there, the universities have a policy: if you are teaching there, you need to be in your class. So I had some people to cover me, and then I was picked up by one of my colleagues, and I was straight away driven from the airport because I had a class. So instead of putting my bag in a place, I actually entered a classroom in Australia and delivered my first class straight away, wide-eyed, never been to Australia, and first thing I land there, I enter a class. I still don't know how I did that. And thanks to my colleague Simon Wilmot there, who actually covered most of the class for me, and I had to just do some of the introductory work. But then my relationship with Australia was very academic and still is academic. And good thing is, and one key thing which I could draw upon was that my particular grounding as a journalist and as a filmmaker, Australia gave me that opportunity to meld both the things, the theoretical aspect as well as the practice aspect. So I ended up working, while I was working with Ican as a kind of on a contractual basis, I also started working for ABC for a project with December Films. Then I worked with SBS, which is another big news channel. And then I worked with Channel 7, which is one of the topmost commercial channel of Australia. So I got an experience of working with them and see the inside out of the industry. And then I ended up in 2018, while I was working as an academic, one of the good things was that as an academic, we were always pushed to work with the industry. So when we worked within the industry, one of the things was that I also got a whole lot of time to experiment. So I was the first person to actually create the first web series in Hindi in Australia. So Microdocs shot web series based on factual stories about Indian Australians and their struggles and their adaptability in Australia as an Australians. And that was very well received, which started as a 3 pilot episode. I ended up making 18 episodes for SBS, which was very prestigious, and it showed me a path of the power of online media for micro storytelling. So when I see things like the focus of this conference on identity, culture, agenda-driven newscast, it's very, very loaded. It's very important. I carry my identity of being an Indian everywhere I go. In Australia, I take pride in saying I'm an Australian, and I take double pride in saying I'm an Indian Australian, And when I tell those stories, people are, they take notice of that. The multiculturalism in Australia is increasing day by day, and the multicultural stories were very limited earlier when I went there. And now when I see in the span of 18 years, things have drastically changed, and multicultural representation and discussions around multiculturalism is becoming quite important, and lots of things are being done around it. Recently, I got a chance again, while I was working mostly my area has been Indian cinema and intangible cultural heritage. Recently, I'm trying to move towards also about bringing back my journalistic activities, which I started with my own community news portal back in Australia called bollyos.com, and it was very well received. And recently, when I was approached by one of my colleagues, she's doing a edited book on for Rutledge on sustainable journalism. And there was another conference which is happening right now in a month's time, IMCR's conference on journalism, where so I thought there's nothing being done in terms of journalism about the Indian Australian, or in a way ethnic Indian news media in Australia, because there are very many news portals back in Australia which lots of South Asians are running. And I could see, and as an ethnic media portal owner back in Australia, which we still continue to work with, I thought that it's time that we do some study. And research is always about finding something new or talking about something new and contributing. And I thought this is where I can contribute and talk about it. And when you start studying something new, there are new challenges. There are lots of challenges, and so I realized that I've just put my hand into something where there's hardly anything written about. Nobody has written about the Indian media in Australia, and how it is being captured, or how do they communicate with the diaspora, the Indian diaspora. So it was a good thing to look at the trajectory of journalism of ethnic Indian media in Australia and see how they advocate about the community, what is the kind of support they have been doing. And mostly I found that the media is very run by sole traders, or people who just invest their own time and energy, and people who were former journalists, back in India, who were practicing journalists, and then they came to Australia, they couldn't find much, place where they could, because there was a kind of a blockage which people found to move on to the mainstream Australian media. In fact, that happened with me as well. So right, like the moment I was in Australia, within a couple of months, I ended up getting an ABC project, which was a huge documentary project. But I was brought into the project because I knew India. So I was the India specialist. And then the next project I get, again, it was Vikrant is the India specialist, so he gets a project with SBS. I get another project with Channel 7, Vikrant is the India specialist. So everything I was, typecasted, or, the kind of understanding of my particular expertise was all about that. If there is a project with from India, then probably, or subcontinent, probably Vikrant is the best person, let's get him. But beyond that, doing something Australian became a problem. Finding that kind of projects to be there, and that was the challenge of multicultural communities back there. So I can see the kind of work community, ethnic media has done that in Australia has been commendable, and that's where, the aspect of identity is to putting your identity at the forefront, taking pride of what you do, but also making sure that your identity doesn't become a part of that stereotypical image. It has to be challenged. Those stereotypes has to be challenged, and you have to work through those things. The second thing I wanted to address, and that has just gone, so culture. And one of the findings of my research, of advocacy, ethnic activism, and sustainable journalism. So that is one paper on sustainable journalism. So the UNESCO is really, really pushing forward for people to get aware of sustainable journalism. So in fact, people who are running journalism courses here, this is one area that you need to look at, sustainable journalism. And what is sustainable journalism? It's basically which talks about sustainability. Sustainability of environment, sustainability of culture, sustainability in terms of gender representation, So all these things intersect in some way or the other, and we all cover it in some way or the other, but we don't know this particular, title which has come recently, and UNESCO has endorsed, and it has been pushing it in last 2 years, 3 years. So the work in this area is very limited. And when I started talking to a whole lot of editors back from the ethnic Indian media, nobody understood what sustainable journalism is. And then I told them that it's about covering environment, it's about covering culture, it's about covering gender. And everybody said, oh, we are doing that, we are already doing that. So, and I said, okay, let's talk about that in those terms. So it became very interesting to see. And one of the biggest thing came about that the cultural aspect. Everyone who I interviewed, they felt that the diaspora connects very much with the cultural aspect, with their own Indian roots, and how they sustain the cultural practices back in Australia. There are good cultural practices which they sustain, and there are problematic cultural practices. And that's where my interest is, about the cultural baggage that they bring in terms of caste, in terms of dowry, in terms of many of those kind of discriminatory practices which whole lot of time we ignore, or we do not see, maybe because we are in that privileged position. And that's where I started taking an interest about these kind of cultural baggages and cultural practices which are discriminatory, and we started challenging those through our writings, through our kind of media making. And that's what one of the things is that how and why you should use media in an effective way. Not only just to eulogize where you come from, not only just to talk about, oh wow, everything is good. When we are talking about India, we are just going to talk about Bollywood, we are going to talk about our curries, and we are going to talk about cricket, and that's it. And because that's a stereotype that most of the Western countries have. But then what is happening when a community, in Australia at the moment, we are almost touching 1 million. So to be precise, it's around 775,000 Indians in Australia. But if you combine the international students, it crosses 1 million plus. So the challenges are there, and these are things to be talked about, and we are doing it. There is a group of people, researchers, scholars, looking at various aspects, and not just are on a kind of a continuous celebrity mode. And that's where journalists come in. The work of journalists is, we do not have this kind of privilege to be in celebrity mode. We have to be always in a kind of a questioning mode. For us, it's questioning. Okay, and there are lots of researchers, as I was talking to Kiran ma'am, and she informed that most of the research students are going to come here today. So, I always find that whenever we talk about journalism, I always talk to my students about the responsibility we have when being a journalist, And in terms of, if I use a particular quote from, as you all know, Spider-Man, with, you must be knowing, with great power comes great responsibility. And when I see today so many of my colleagues here back in India, at editor position or all those things, and then seeing them spewing venom, hatred, the kind of agenda which really makes me uncomfortable. Not only uncomfortable, very, very angry. So angry that I've stopped watching Indian news media. It's that I just feel people I worked with, people I shared desk with, people, who I really respected, and suddenly in last 10, 15 years, what has happened? What is the credibility of media if it is all about sensationalization? Why it is so that it is all about, picking people and creating demons out of them? This is problematic. So as media students and as media academics, what is our responsibility? How do we get people interested in understanding the power they might have in future? How would they use that? Or what are the issues of misusing that? Now, of course, there are different things. It's not just one person who decides it. There are various factors, the ownership of media, who's in the command of the change and who's running the agenda. There's lots of things. Lots of times people are, helpless, that they can't do anything because they are in that kind of system, which I understand very well. But what happens when you come into power? And I've seen people who talk very highly about ethics, and then when I see them in that position of power, the ethics have gone for a toss. So what is media ethics? And this is another kind of talk which has come recently about, student work in terms of the research papers and all. And I've been part of a few PhD examinations all over the world. But when I see when I marked few PhD papers from India, from some universities, it has really pained me to send those back because I found that the ethics was somewhat compromised. The research was not the way it should be. So again, coming back to institutes which focus on research, that's where we have to pay attention. I'm trying to combine a whole lot of my things because I'm not here with a planned paper. So I'm just trying to share my experiences all across and see what I can connect here. And I'm not going to take more time, just 2 more minutes. And I just feel that with so much of exposure and so many media and so much interesting things happening across the world, we have got lots of opportunity. And one good thing for us to do, again, I'm going to come back to the first thing which Mriirs talked about, is collaboration. So we are opening, both at Deakin University and at Nottingham, we are open to research collaboration, not only institutional wise. So in case if somebody is writing a paper, and if you are looking for someone to collaborate with you, you want someone experienced who can be your guide or mentor in your area, then you can always approach me. I can find you someone who can be a co-author, okay? Or just a supporting author, just to look through your structure, give some comments, feedback on things as to how you can improve, and then give you a kind of a opportunity to be published at those really well established international publication. Because at the end, for any publisher, scopus will matter. Your particular, those kind of publications which are well recognized and which are very well distributed all across the world will matter. And as an institute, it is our responsibility again that are we giving you that opportunity? So while we can take pride in having really good events and everything, but those kind of connections also have to be built in terms of output, as to is that output supporting the kind of effort that we are putting in creating these kind of events. So there has to be a kind of a synergy out there. And my last parting thing is that definitely I would be open to any kind of discussion. Happy to share my email, and of course you can ask Mriirs and Sushmita ma'am for my contact. I can find you partners, I can find people to collaborate with you. I can also connect you with various publishers. And another good thing was Mriirs showed me that he had a very interesting session during the conference on public publishing, and there was a very good US-based academic who was talking about it. And I could only see through it for maybe about 5 or 10 minutes, but I was so happy that that is happening, that those kind of attempts are being made to connect the students with really good researchers and getting them, and even the researcher from US, from Miami University, forgetting the name, Jyotika, and she is so widely published, and having people like them being here, nothing like that. It gives me really a huge pleasure to be among those kind of academics, and of course seeing KG Shrestha and Nimish just presented me with a book on science journalism and amazing science filmmaking, and the list of the kind of people who have written there. It's something incredible, and we need to see that more, and we need to take those collaboration forward. So I end with this. Thank you so much. Thanks to you, Ms. Karan, for inviting me. Thanks, Maithili ji, for inviting me here today. And we'll continue this discussion in future as well. Thanks.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. We shall now move to the first part of the deliberations today with a panel discussion on India's preparedness for SDG 3, role of health and science communication.
The panel discussion will be moderated by our Dean, Dr. Maithili Ganjoo. Ma'am holds an MPhil PhD in Sociology from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. In her 3 decades of work experience, she worked in the media industry as a communication strategist and knowledge management specialist with leading media organizations like JWT India, Ogilvy, and Group M, and later in academic institutions like Manipal Academy of Higher Education, Dainik Jagran Group, and Pearl Academy. She has designed integrated communication campaigns in the developmental sector, social marketing, and brands. She teaches advertising and PR, consumer behavior, brand marketing, film studies, and media studies to postgraduate students of marketing and media studies. She has written a textbook for school children, book chapters and academic papers in highly indexed journals, and presented papers and project proposals. She is passionate about films and believes in the power of storytelling as a catalyst for social change. Today's panelists include Mr. KG Suresh, Dr. KG Suresh, Ms. Kalyani Rajan, Mr. Nimish Kapoor, and Ms. Prachi Garg. And I'll request Gunjan to introduce them.
Thank you, Mehika. So, Professor KG Suresh sir is a New Delhi-based senior journalist, columnist, and communication specialist. He is currently serving as Vice Chancellor of the Makhanlal Chaturvedi National University of Journalism and Communication, Bhopal. Professor Kalyani Rajan ma'am is a visiting senior fellow at Artha Global who has over 20 years of experience as a social and behavior change communication specialist. She has worked on numerous issues in India and the SAARC countries under the broad areas of public health, water and sanitation, education and protection using behavioral insights and human-centered design approaches to solve challenging humanitarian and development sector problems through communication. As a strategist and head of the specialist unit at J. Walter Thompson, she led several public health emergency and disease outbreak intervention in India, including polio, H5N1, Zika virus, HIV and AIDS, as a multi-task 360-degree communication campaign in addition to diseases under the National Routine Immunization Program.
Nimish Kapoor sir is a science communicator, writer, film curator, television programmer, and team builder. He has been working in Vigyan Prasar, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India for the last 16 years. At present, as scientist, principal scientist, he is heading the Science Films Division, Public Division, and India Science Wire, a science news and feature service. He is a certified Google News Initiative trainer on fact verification. Prachi Garg ma'am is Market Access Policy Pricing and Communications Lead, South Asia Organon Company. Prachi ma'am is a dedicated and accomplished public health and policy professional with a passion for ensuring accessible and equitable quality care for all. With over 18 years of experience in the field, she has made significant contributions to the healthcare industry in various leadership roles in areas such as public health, policy development, health system strengthening, social and behavior change communication, digital health, and advocacy. Her educational background includes a prestigious Fulbright Hubert H. Humphrey Fellowship. She studied public health policy and management at Emory University in Atlanta. Thank you.
Over to me. Thank you. Thank you very much, and a very good afternoon. I think we are already there, 15 minutes to a good afternoon, but a nice dynamic morning with so much of uncertainty, and finally we took off. That's what being in India is all about. Vikrant sir, in case you had forgotten. So we thrive in chaos, and we really do our best eventually. So the panel today, the panel discussion, of course, you all know, is about understanding the SDG 3, which is about health and good, well-being. as the nomenclature goes. We are, of course, going to delve and look at health communication and look at science communication and its role in actually being able to understand whether India is prepared enough with these SDG goals, or are we only talking a lot about it? So that's what the panel discussion is really going to be about. My panelists here again, this is an example of a collaboration where the two ladies here really are from my past. I think the three of us have done a lot of work together in health communication. And interestingly, what Vikrant was trying to say here was that we lack academic research identity, so as to say globally. But the irony is that I think there is so much of research work that is actually happening in India, and that's what I meant. That's what I meant when I said the three of us have done really been in communities and done that kind of work, had the data, have had the insights, but then academically somehow things are not coming together. A platform like Ican, in my understanding, is going to take this particular, silo business out of currency now. We will all be together looking at research as the fundamental of whatever we do in our lives, right? Whether it's academics, whether it's media, whether it's thinking and strategizing and being policy people, or whether it is us as ordinary consumers of this government's programs and policies, or anything else that may sort of come in our way. So with that, I'll first set a 2-seconder context as to why we are talking about the health. Whereas, when we look at identity, when we look at culture, when we look at agenda setting, we kind of think there are more serious things happening there. So my understanding and take on this is that culture, identity, primarily, are the most dynamic, volatile, whatever the word you might like to choose, basically ever-changing concepts in human life. A culture, although we try to locate it within the past, the present, and the future, essentially is evolving, almost like the Hindu philosophy. It's never linear. It is all going back and coming forth, and basically a big round of trying to look for certain things, purging other things, and moving ahead with new ideas. This is more so because today we are in a technology-driven society. Globally, even if we do not like the pace, we are all running in that race, which is of change, of technology, of trying to grapple with so many things and trying to bring so many things together. It is in this context that while in the last 3 days there is a lot of research papers being read, a lot of discussion happening, a lot of technology being embraced and pushed and thought about, etc., I felt that it was also mandatory for us to go back to the basic. The basic really is a good health. Unless we are all healthy, we cannot be thinking about all those great dreams that we have. And SDG 3 is something that is more of a conceptual framework within which we understand or we evaluate. And here we are actually trying to evaluate India's preparedness. Because India today, that's like another big thing to be kept in mind, is now a very, very important country in the global good. We are economically really up there with our colonizers behind us. And we are also like, as journalists, you would have seen, I don't know if that's a fake news or new news, but it seems New York Times covered PM Modi. Some people did say on the WhatsApp it's a fake news, so I don't know. However, the fact does remain, he did a great thing there. He's recognized and looked at as somebody who has the future for the globe. And we, as the citizens of his country, therefore, have to have the same spirit and the same limelight on us, right? So it is in this context, and I'm trying to look at the basic thing called our health preparedness, and what is it we are doing as a nation from a policy point of view, from programs point of view, as well as from the point of view of consumers who sort of know what's happening really at the ground level as well. So that is where SDG 3 comes in, to become a part of that culture, of that identity. And is there a need for an agenda setting which is looking at those basic development issues where we still are struggling while we are reaching the stars? Okay, so with that, I open this discussion, and to begin with, I'm going to actually ask Prachi to set a context. Prachi, do tell us all where you think, as a policy strategist, where are we when it comes to SDGs, and where is the preparedness? Like, are we even beginning? Is there like any benchmark that we personally need to look at? Over to you. Please go ahead. Can you take that?
Thank you, Maithili. It's a question to answer which can actually take a lot of time and space in itself. But I think we have been associated with the health sector for a long time now, and when India was transitioning from Millennium Development Goals to Sustainable Development Goals, we were very positive about it. And I think, in the beginning, I would like to set the context that, one, India is on track with Sustainable Development Goals, and we should be very positive about it.
So I think we should clap for this.
Yeah. But being a big and the most populous country in the world now, I think it's important to reflect on a few considerations. And as Vikrant was talking about Australia, we add an entire Australia to our population every year. And at any given point of time, an entire Australia is in our trains, traveling from one place to another. So that is the size of the country we are talking about, which is multilingual, multicultural, and from the very beginning, our health policies have not been dictatorial. We have, in last 70 years, constantly urged our population to make choices which are favorable to them. So if I just look at what government has done from the policy perspective in last few decades, I think we have made some remarkable strides. We, from the targeted approach, we are now in the target-free approach arena for several years now. Indian government launched National Rural Health Mission, which has now transcended into National Health Mission, which is focusing, actually all the objectives under National Health Mission are catering to Sustainable Development Goals. We have a universal healthcare scheme, Ayushman Bharat, in India now, which is providing health assurance for at least below poverty line population. And in coming years, we have to see how it can cover the entire country. The country is bothered about digital transformation, and India will leapfrog because we did not have technology in the past, so there were no old school computer systems where we were managing our systems. So India is actually leapfrogging into the latest technology.
For which we thank COVID, actually, we being Indians.
Even before COVID, Indian government had National Digital Health Mission, so that the data can be available, interoperability can be there. So Government of India has actually in every 5 years taken some significant decisions, and we have seen consistent gains on specifically SDG 3 indicators. And I think the top indicator where India made achievements is institutional deliveries.
Yes, MMR, the fact
which has actually reduced
maternal mortality rate.
Yes. So with institutional deliveries being almost 100% in several states and close to 98-99% in many states, maternal mortality rate has really reduced.
We're at 96 now, whereas we are hoping to be under 70 as the SDG goals go.
So
it's 8 years to go.
So the last leg is always most difficult. So now we need to really see that what more we need to do. There are a few thoughts on that, and we can talk about it. We are doing well on child mortality also. However, what we have done well on communicable diseases specifically, especially HIV/AIDS, but then COVID came to give us a next level challenge. Cardiovascular diseases, there have been some significant improvements. However, cancer and some other high cost non-communicable diseases remain a challenge for us. Just to take this context to more specificity so that people can understand what it means for us. While we have made achievements, so in India, public sector caters to the primary care primarily. Though Government of India has secondary and tertiary care centers, secondary and tertiary care is largely delivered to private sector. And several cross-sectoral policies and initiatives impact us in delivering quality healthcare, early access to innovations, affordable healthcare, equitable healthcare, gender issues, industry policies. All these issues actually impact SDG 3 directly or indirectly, gender being a primary of them. If we look at from the policy perspective, health system strengthening, Government of India is really doing well. We have quality infrastructure now opening up. We have the doctor to patient ratio also improving in the country now. However, I won't say all is achieved because infrastructure and manpower, we have to make continuous efforts in the country to keep them going to the optimum benchmark where we want them to be. Our nursing staff is not as
globally accepted
compared to global benchmarks. Our nursing staff, their income and all is not comparable, especially in the private sector, so that would impact us. In terms of behavior change communication, I think government has made some very serious efforts.
We'll come to that later. Yeah. Right now, the policy and setting a context. And from you, I'm going to straight away leap to KG sir for his comments on, or his understanding on, where is media in all this?
Because this is what the policy people say and not everybody
is into the policy, understanding the policies and programs. So the media with its role as the, conduit and fourth pillar.
Thank you, Dr. Maithili. A very good afternoon to everyone. I think that, let's talk about health communication per se. In this country, we never had a culture of health communication. Nobody was trained for health communication. You would be surprised to know that even the IEC, for which there is a substantial commitment in the budgets also, the entire dependency is on the Anganwadi workers rather than communication, rather than technology. The focus is on Anganwadi workers. And they are the most poorly paid, yet the most influential, the most impactful, link between the government and the people. It is these Anganwadi workers who actually pay from, during COVID, they actually paid from their pockets. They worked without salaries, they were the primary communicators of government policies, schemes, and everything. Let us also note, when we talk about health, I totally agree that much has improved over the years, but health is a state subject. And unfortunately, you find that the condition of primary health centers, particularly in states like Bihar, are really pathetic. These centers don't exist for most parts. You have exceptions like Kerala, where they are at par with global standards, but you also have, on the other hand, primary health centers which do not have basic facilities. Government hospitals are in a bad shape. And there is a great, I would say, in terms of proportion, majority of the doctors prefer working in the urban areas rather than the rural areas. Rural areas you hardly get, so that is why there has been this consistent demand for, mandatory, like we talk about conscription in the army, there has to be mandatory deployment of doctors in the rural areas. That's important. Coming to the communication fact, the fact is that for defense you need communication, training, strategic communication. But for health, which is such a critical subject, anybody and everybody, any reporter is actually assigned the health beat, which is really unfortunate. You need, because when we did this program, when I was the Director General at Indian Institute of Mass Communication, we, along with UNICEF and the Thomson Reuters Foundation and Oxford University, we evolved this critical appraisal skills program in public health communication, CASP. And we introduced it for the first time in India, for the first time at IIMCs. It was made an integral part of the training program at IIMC. We trained journalists from leading newspapers like Dainik Bhaskar, Dainik Amar Ujala. And this entire thing was based on a concept called evidence-based reporting. Most of the reporting were speculative by nature. There was hardly any scientific basis. I will give you an example. I still remember there was this story which was carried by a lot of Indian newspapers that if pregnant women eat chocolates, they will have happy babies. And you had husbands every day carrying lots of chocolates and really forcing their wives to eat. This study hardly had any scientific basis, but this was widely. Similarly, drinking coffee is helpful, drinking coffee is harmful. These are all pushed by powerful lobbies, influential lobbies, pharma lobbies, which are pushing these things. But the journalists are unable to distinguish in the absence of training. The journalists need to be trained that these are the journals like Lancet, like the journals which are highly, influential journals which have credibility, huge credibility. They have to be referred to. There can be Indian journals also. ICMR has its own journals. They can be referred to. But this kind of speculative reporting, because I was involved in the polio communication program along with WHO, and I still remember that particularly the language media, which is vulnerable, very vulnerable, and that is where you had stories, particularly in Western UP and in Hooghly district, where we had to make effective intervention because the Pulse polio program, they had said that this is an American conspiracy targeting a particular community. And the whole idea was to ensure that their fertility rates are down. This was the kind of, and the same thing happened during COVID also, the COVID vaccinations. You had all these things. Now, in the absence of training, so I think the most critical component to come to your question, and is that there is hardly any training in Indian media to cover health issues. Often, you have also clubbed here science and health communication. Often the science correspondent is expected to do health stories also. The health correspondent is expected to do science stories also. Now, these are different disciplines altogether. Certainly health is part of science, but health communication needs training. We need to train our journalists to cover health. It's a specialized area where you need a specialized training.
So, okay, thanks, KG. Your perspective is very interesting because the media lash that you're talking about, Kalyani and I have been a part of witnessing that and actually developing communication in order to see that that particular problem in Western UP was sorted. In fact, that is when strategically we thought of getting the religious leaders in, and there were these conferences held in Jamia in order to talk to them and make them go back to the community, etc. So high time to bring in Kalyani into the scene because, KG's perspective is a very journalism and government perspective, and I would like to really contest one thing which he said, which is about communication not being done or not being understood, which is not correct. Communication has been a mandatory part of World Bank funding in India since the 1980s, if not early 90s. Yeah, so yeah, and it was a part but it was not the journalists. It used to be development communication experts who have been working on it, and that is where Kalyani belongs. We had set up way back the first universal immunization program, which was started in 1990s, is something that Thomson Social had started, and there we were taking the expertise. Forget India didn't have that. There was Johns Hopkins University, USAID. In fact, UNICEF has joined the bandwagon quite late. It has been USAID, which is United Nations Development Sector Organization in India, along with the Johns Hopkins University, correct? Over to you, this is your
very much. Okay, interesting, where I figured in this conversation. Prachi's given a great background of, policy and the programs that we have. We've got the opinion about journalism really in spreading information or misinformation and disinformation, as we've soon become, very familiar with. Maithili, thank you for bringing this up about communication. See, what I believe that is that in India and many other countries also, everybody thinks they're a communicator. Okay, but the point is, we must ask ourselves, what is the purpose of that communication? There are so many different tasks. Now, journalism, we are expected them to provide correct information, to increase the knowledge bank amongst people and all that. But at the same time, just one-way communication which is meant to disseminate makes no sense. The purpose of disseminating any information is to get people to do something with that information. Is that just to think about it? Just to say, oh, I didn't know that before? Or, yes, I must change the way I think about situations or behaviors and perform in that matter. This brand has told me something different. But it can't take the push from there. There are several areas from where communication and information comes out. And I think IEC is what someone spoke about just a while back. You talked about IEC, which is really old-fashioned because all you are saying is there's information, you're educating people through information, and the way you're putting it across is through communication. Ultimately, the goals of SDG and anything that we're talking about is about change, better social change, progressive social change. And to be able to do that, you have to finally look at whose change are we really trying to make a difference to. It's the people, obviously, as SDG also focuses on. And we all know that. It's about really the marginalized and the disadvantaged families who lack the access to education, quality healthcare, and good means of economic livelihood as well. How much are these services reaching them? And how much do the people understand at that level that they need to demand those services? And that's where communication, according to me, and at least one of the roles, is so critical. Ultimately, how do you get people to change their behaviors, changing it at an individual level, at a community level, which ultimately starts dictating what social change is all about. Just to give a few examples, and I can talk forever, and that's why I request Maithili also please interject if you want me to focus in a particular area. I have a tendency to ramble a lot. But let's look at the SDGs. Yes, maternal mortality, infant mortality, institutional delivery, these are ones which are changing. I just read recently, however, that although it is moving, it is still a long way to go and we have only 7 years left. COVID unfortunately came in through a big spanner in the works. But it's not the first time India has seen something like that. Around 2004, 2003, 2004, when India was already behind the global mandate for polio eradication, polio took on such a big profile. All efforts were focused on that, as a result of which RI suffered. Now we're seeing that again, what's happened right now.
RI is respiratory.
No, routine immunization. Routine immunization. I'm sorry, I'm used to using a lot of abbreviations.
So, because there are teachers, there are students and scholars, just simplify.
Sure. And please, in case I'm not understood, to ask. And now COVID came in through a spanner in the works to SDGs because apart from the mortality and morbidity, it was also a huge burden on the public healthcare system, not just public healthcare, but also the private healthcare. And I would like to take this example because this is so relevant in our minds about COVID. Communication came from everywhere. The journalists, the media, people, word of mouth, conspiracy theories, everything which kind of gave...
The WhatsApp industry.
Everything. So media was primarily responsible for disseminating all this incorrect stuff, as a result of which there was a lot of apprehension, misinformation, misconception, myths, social media, every media. Yes, but the thing is that media is a channel, right? It's a channel through which information is provided. There is no specific attack on anything out here. Okay. And again, research was something we talked about earlier. As part of the Earth Global Task Force, International Task Force on COVID response, my role there was really about communication and how could communication change the way people respond to, one, the CAB behaviors we talked about in the first phase of COVID, and then secondly, the vaccination. There was the ambitions of the government, as the whole world, were enormous. I mean, this was a huge challenge. We don't have to keep repeating that. And I had also come across a strategy document that was prepared by the government, which was hugely ambitious. This is only reflective of many other things that the government has done in the past. Apologies, but the thing is that ambitions are big, challenges are huge, but action and commitment is considerably less than what is expected when you have such huge ambitions. It doesn't reach there because it's easy to provide information again, but people aren't reading the information unless there is something that makes them actually change. And this is why when we talked about professional agencies, and perhaps that's also something that you meant about no health communication, that ultimately if we're looking at social progress and change in behaviors, we need to figure out how to trigger that change. We have learned from the past that any health communication is not about health. It is not about health. People have heard about health to death. They know, yes, if I take a vaccine, I'm going to get better. At some level, they understand that. But that's not a priority, because that's also preventive health behavior, which is not something the Indian public, and especially these families we're talking about who have less access, are even thinking about that. Their priorities are living, surviving on a daily basis. It's not about preventive health care. They also have a fatalistic attitude, which says, okay, if God gives us some kind of illness, God will take care of it, this is God's will. Or they will have traditional practices.
COVID also sort of did make it fatalistic for
Of course it
a
did,
lot of
because the
people, yeah.
people's attitude towards vaccination later also was exactly the same. It hasn't changed in many, many years. It still exists. Because even now there are communities which are zero dose, though there's been great success in immunization, overall routine immunization, that is, children under 1. But the thing is that it's not moving because there are actually zero dose communities, and the communication isn't reaching them, and it's not triggering the right kind of behavior.
Why do you say that communication is not reaching them?
So again, like I'm saying, that communication is what? Is information enough to change them?
Okay.
Are we giving them a proper value? That
The benefit of...
And it's not the health benefit I'm talking about, because that's given. You can communicate it, you can say it 100 times, but is that enough? And we've seen that it doesn't move the needle when it comes to deeply entrenched behaviors. Just communicate information alone, even informing about the benefits, practical benefits, functional benefits, is not enough.
So I'm wondering, I just want to put this, I'm wondering in COVID, many times, the fact that you could come back to work and get your salary only if you showed them the vaccination,
Would that have been a motivator, you're asking?
I'm wondering.
So there was a campaign that was developed. Most of the campaigns talked about, yes, vaccination will protect you against the severity of COVID. Yes, okay. So I think everybody knew that, but could question it. When we did a research, we did 3-legged research. This was in-depth amongst communities. Please understand communities is the most important aspect. Understand their lives, not just the subject. Understand where they're coming from and why they can or can't perform certain behaviors. In this research, while it threw up the obvious barriers and the obvious motivators, such as barriers being obviously misconceptions, myths, it doesn't work, COVID is crazy, it doesn't exist, it's a government scheme, whatever it is, and the motive...
Trust in the vaccine.
Trust in the vaccine. So these were barriers. And on the other hand, the benefits of it were seen as, yes, I may not get COVID, I may not get sick, other people have taken it. The biggest motivator we actually found was, or let's say the biggest problem people went through was disruption in lives.
Yeah.
And therefore, would they be doing something? Would they take the action to win their old life back?
Okay.
That became the bigger motivator. As long as COVID remains, as long as people aren't getting vaccinated, the government isn't going to stop it, COVID will remain, and my life is going to continue to be awful. My kids are going to sit at home, they're going to be on mobile phones, my wife is going to be getting angry, having to deal with so many different things.
Okay, so carrying on with life, getting back to life.
So the line actually was, yes, it's time, I want to win my life back. Okay,
win my life back.
Win my life back. Because gave it a warrior feeling, okay, this was a scenario in which COVID was very active and we were on a war footing. So it was based on this understanding that came from research.
At this point, I have to get Nimish in. Because another thing, I'm going to disagree with you a lot today, KG. Okay? So one of the things which KG said was health and science don't go together.
Whereas that you are I said that science communication is different, health communication is different.
Oh, let's find out that.
Let's make them synonymous.
No.
Make them synonymous.
I think
Reporting a development in a laboratory is different from reporting from the primary health care center.
Okay. So, no, we'll simplify, don't worry, huh? I know how to catch KG. So, okay. Nimish sir, I want you to step in here and clear this misunderstanding about what is science communication, what is it or is it not something that the health communication could write or kind of collaborate with, if not anything. Also, the fact that there is so much of government doing science, but how come we don't know anything about it? Please, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. And I would like to just connect with our fellow speakers, panelists. We must take lessons from our success stories, and one of the story was दो बूंद जिंदगी की polio campaign. Yeah, we were discussing today. So, in that communication model or strategy or agenda, source was obviously Ministry of Health and Dr. Harshvardhan, our then minister, and channel was Amitabh Bachchan. Message very clear, simple, palatable, easy to understand. दो बूंद जिंदगी के लिए, right? जिंदगी की, whatever. And receiver, our layman, stakeholders, variety of audience, parents, young adults, and so on. So in that communication model, there was clarity in various cultures, culture of health professional, content provider, culture of media, celebrities, and the culture of stakeholders. So here I am going to discuss science and health communication, but first I would love to introduce here the cultural distance model introduced in India by our fellow scientists Gohar Raza and Surjit Abbas and their colleagues in Kumbh Mela last more than 35-40 years. They are doing public awareness survey on science and technology, and all the researches are available on Google Scholar. So they presented very beautiful cultural distance model where they define one culture is related to content provider, it may be subject expert, scientist, and ministry and so on, and second culture is media. Which medium you are taking to convey the message. It may be digital, it may be celebrity, it may be campaign, it may be any awareness kind of thing. And third culture is our audience, viewer, receivers or listeners. So these understanding of these three cultures are mandatory to one it may be subject expert or scientist must learn about the media, and media scholars or journalists must know the content providers and the culture of lab or hospitals, what the R&D they are doing, and both the culture of lab and culture of media must understand the stakeholders, end users or consumers. So, and there is a difference between the cultures. So if we try to fill this gap, this distance, so we may set our path of success or our goals, what we are trying to achieve. In India, last 25 or 30 years, I am observing variety of efforts as KG sir started health communication successfully in IMC, but today I don't know that course is there or not. The problem is sustainability. In 1995, a lot of Indian universities started communication, health and science communication courses, but I wrote a paper in a book published by Springer, where I found in my qualitative research study that there three points were missing in these courses when these courses were designed. One is teachers who will teach these subjects. Number two, content, books, good publications, reading material. And three, jobs. These three mandatory requirements were missing, and समय के साथ साथ वो courses खत्म हो गए. Now, Vigyan Prasar, I'm in Vigyan Prasar from last 2 decades, and we started to re-establish these courses, and in workshop mode, a special paper, some CBCS or what, choice-based system courses, and as a part of our effort, we are producing these kind of books. packaging science for public interest. And when we did this conference in 2019 in Kolkata, Satyajit Ray Film and Television Institute, where we invited scientists, policymakers, filmmakers, journalists, and so on, various stakeholders and collaborators, then one leading senior scientist, what he said, you cannot package science like this. Science is universal, science is here, science is there. You cannot package science. Then I requested and I defined the meaning of this term. We are not locking science on any, किसी हम बक्से में science को बंद नहीं कर रहे हैं. We are decorating science. We are disseminating science with, visuals and graphics and animation. To reach to these stakeholders with, with pressure of adaptability and his or her capacity. So, again, as I already explained about the cultural distance model, scientists are packed in their labs. They have research papers, technical jargons, they are writing research papers, and actually they are not responsible for communication. Now the role is number 2, जो है culture model में media और our channels. उनका role है कि to understand them, and scientists also must try to understand the media and stakeholders. Now, from last 15 years, I am happy to see the science communicators in our labs. India has more than 5,000 labs. In ICMR, ICAR, CSIR, DST, DBT, DRDO, and other water, energy, atomic energy, space. So we have earth sciences, more than 5,000 labs, and lakhs of scientists are working, not from here to Geneva, CERN and all. But again, the thing is, misconception is another, miscommunication is another challenge. So we'll discuss in second round about how to deal with miscommunication, discommunication, rumors, and how this science communication, trained science communicator can deal with these kind of challenges.
So I'm a little curious, and I'll get KG in for explanation too, which is when you say science communication and teaching, I mean sort of training people, are you talking about science or what? Is there a curriculum that we have? Have you ever had that in your?
Yes. Okay. You see, our constitution very clearly mandates that we inculcate scientific temperament in our masses. So science journalism or science communication is aimed or targeted towards that end. The whole idea is to build a scientific temperament so that they start thinking rationally, scientifically, whether it is related to superstition, whether it is related to, that's science communication, essentially making science relevant to the common man in their day-to-day life. Health communication is the target is where the principal stakeholder is the public at large, the beneficiary. How it reaches him, whether it is helping the primary health center is benefiting him or not, whether the problems in the hospitals, the patients, how they are being dealt with, by and large those issues are there. So that's why I made the distinction. Though both have a scientific approach. Science communication, yes, at Makhanlal also we started science communication diploma program. Unfortunately, these programs are not taking off in the absence of guaranteed jobs. Unfortunately, what is happening is that we don't have, specific, whether it is government bodies or media organizations or NGOs who specifically insist on such qualifications. So in the absence of that, today, majority of the students are going into media or for that matter into any discipline with the target of getting a job, not with the target of gaining knowledge. So when you have I'll give you this example. Last year I started at my Riva campus a program in rural journalism. I could not get 10 students for that. And I had to drop that program for the simple reason that the first question they are asking me is that where are the jobs? Because nobody is specifically demanding this. That yes, please come with a qualification in development communication. Why development communication studies have not taken off in this country? Initially, we were all into development journalism. IMC's brand international program is development communication. But that's not there for the Indians. It's now for foreign students, foreign scholars. Yes, absolutely. So development communication, because nobody is specifically asking for that. Nobody in media, nobody in development sector is saying, okay, come with a development sector communication, have a development communication diploma or degree, there is a job for you. No, then they are saying, why should we take a risk? So I think that, as you, yes, absolutely.
Pedagogically, I think it is the MSW, social work,
yes,
which has taken that space.
Absolutely.
And that's something I think thinkers need to kind of get into.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we'll quickly go. You wanted to add
comment. So here we need to sensitize and communicate to our owners of media houses and chief editors or senior producers that these courses are there for your stakeholders, for your readers, because politics, sports, share market, film, Bollywood and all, these are essential components, no doubt, but these health, science, development is directly connected to your audiences. So you, and these are the courses where trained journalists are being prepared for your media house. So please consider them for these kind of things, because yesterday was a report that we are consuming microplastic with the size of credit card, I think every month or every year. So these kind of daily we are reading these kind of reports and.
Correct, I got it. Although, the thing is that instead of putting it in silos, anyway, that's for other time. I want to come back to our SDG goals and talk about, say, the maternal mortality that we started with. How come we have better, you said institutional deliveries have led to good MMR. What is stopping IMR? Why isn't immunization happening? Any thoughts on that?
It's something, Maithili, which is very close to my heart. And I think it's a strategic perspective as well. So when we started National Health Mission, we bridged the first set of gaps. We said institutional deliveries is a must. We said nutrition for mothers is a must. So we had door-to-door workers who counseled women, we incentivized providers, we incentivized families. However, we are at a point to step forward, we need to change our strategy. For instance, still in India, a large number of young girls get married. And
child marriage,
child marriage, teenage marriages, or even marriage at 18. Now, Government of India has moved the age of childbirth to 21 years. But so far, a large set of population in India still delivers all their children by the time they're 21, 22, 2-3 children, and then they get sterilized. However, we need to focus on family planning, birth spacing, delaying the first pregnancy. So family planning is a very important aspect which does not feature in the core narrative of SDG 3. Anemia, poor nourishment levels of women. So wasting and stunting and anemia are literally experienced irrespective of the socioeconomic background. 70% of women are anemic. So we need to step back and say, where do we need to invest now? I did a study a couple of years back on the cost efficiency of public health services, and we found that investment, adding another doctor is not going to bring more patients or greater quality services. Investing in sweepers in the hospital, frontline cadre, and that's where we need to invest. So we need to really think about where are we investing. We need to bring innovations to the people rather than trying to only rely on the common minimum or the basic healthcare services. We need to say what is the best quality care that I can provide to the woman. So these are some of the, so we need to look at the level 2, level 3 of strengthening our healthcare system.
What about the budget? How is the budget doing? Do we have money for women, for instance? I was reading your thing the other day where your company really is trying to bring that issue to the fore, that it's only 4% of the budget that really goes for women's care. Is that the right statistics?
I would not make a comment on the budget right now, Maithili, because I don't have my numbers handy. So it would be irresponsible. But one important thing that I would like to flag is last year, of only 2 indications of almost 42 drugs which were approved by US FDA, only 2 were for women's health. So we have been talking about need to invest in the R&D on women's health, need to invest in then taking that medicine to the woman till the last mile.
Affordability and accessibility of...
I would not just say affordability, equity. Gender is such an important component, and women are always the last person standing in the line. It's a very interesting statistics that we observed in multiple countries on cardiovascular disorders. In India, cardiovascular disorder treatment is not very expensive, but it's very surprising, even in developed countries, more women die because of untreated cardiovascular diseases, because when they delay seeking treatment compared to men, and when they go to the provider, a lot of their complaints are dismissed as tantrums, attention-seeking behavior. So globally, women are less likely to be taken seriously for their CVD symptoms than men. So so we are basically, so their gender is a very important issue where we need to invest to make that last mile covered. Nutrition is very important. We need to look at second, third level strategies, family planning, schooling, education, economy, connecting all the health indicators back with economic productivity is what we need to think about more seriously now.
So as a strategy then, to all of you, what do you think? We need to bring it all together, or we need to differentiate in terms of getting the maximum result?
I would actually, from the media communication point of view, I would like to make a point, and I was thinking about it when Nimish and KG were talking. What we need as people who deal with media is a well-formed mind, good analytical skills, and that is what universities nurture into us. And I, as a person who worked with the communities in non-profit sector, then I worked with BBC, I came to Ministry of Health, I worked in management consulting, and now I'm in the pharmaceutical industry. I feel this has given me a good 360-degree view of what's happening out there. I'm very empathetic to government, I'm not very critical because I've been there. When you're working for a population of 1.4 billion, your building block is not like you're working for a country like Fiji or a small island out there. We are literally looking, even or Australia. So the challenge is tough. So I think as media people, what we need to do is we need to expose ourselves to the challenges and what we say resources available at each side of the table on all the stakeholders, and that will actually give us a good quality output when we communicate. Because when I work with journalists now in my current role, I feel that journalists don't have time to do their homework. They tell me, if you can write the article, give it to me. They just publish it. Even with the typos, they would publish it. So somebody in my team would write the article, then it goes to the legal. So I have met very few journalists in last so many years who actually take the pain of doing their own research, having their own point of view, and putting a good piece out there together.
Just to one comment, sorry, I'll take a second only. You asked, should it work separately or should it work together? Rather simple, I'm sorry to say that question, because everything is interconnected. You can't be in silos. There is interconnection, there has to be collaboration, we talked about earlier. But one needs to look at the expertise of different partners and bodies together and figure out who's really going to take the lead in a different area. Please do not give that communication to people who are just going to be writing messages. Give it to somebody professional who knows how to trigger that change. Science communication, one is just content, and the other thing is how to communicate it to the community. It's not the same thing. So, just that.
Yeah, just I'm touching how part. When we started one India Science Wire, it is India's premier science news and feature service, in which we request scientists to provide content, their research papers, and we have trained journalists, and they are making ready to print, ready to use science reports, news reports in science, environment, health, and various other sectors. And from various labs, we are receiving daily inputs, research papers, and findings, and so on. So here, my submission is, we need, number one is, we need to train our scientists, scholars, research paper writers to give one out-of-box column with the heading out of box or something, and they must train to just give some pointers for media and layperson. In a research paper, some small box can be planned for media and layperson. Some pointers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out of this research, these 5 points are suitable for layman. Why I am doing this research? What is my conclusion and recommendation? So I saw this in some international journals, this practice, some pointers for layman and media. And second thing, when we start making a strategy or some agenda or some kind of policy, we try to implement at grassroots level, and for this we need to develop a communication strategy where we can refine and define, for example, suppose we are saying that this much protein is required for pregnant women or adolescent or teenage girl or adult man or women, but we cannot expect our labor class or home our workers or section that from where they will get information that how much dal or egg or this milk I need for this number of protein. So they need simple information in their languages, regional languages, that how much sabji or anda aapko khana hai to fulfill your protein or your iron requirement or this thing. So that kind of strategies are required to transfer this the knowledge outlined in a policy or agenda or a research paper to grassroots level. That's it.
I just want to add something to that. When we talked about health and science communication being separate, and Maithili, and what you just talked about now, Maithili, you will also recall a combination of health and science, routine immunization. The communities did not understand how vaccination would help them ward off the diseases. They feel ill. And the thing is that people did not know how to communicate the science of vaccination. Now they're for science and health. As we know how vaccines work, we had done it in demonstrative tools. Remember, Maithili? In which we said that, when the vaccine comes in, it's got a little bit of the devil in it, the enemy in it. It'll come in, and then the people, the cells inside, the blood cells will recognize that enemy and prepare an army to fight against it, okay?
We demonstrated it in terms of making those kind of devices that were sort of taken to the community and then
through the CBD workers.
That's right. It was delivered
that
through.
would be sort of shown to them in order to, for them to understand why vaccine is important. Thanks for reminding.
And which is why I always say go to the professionals when it comes to understanding what's going to make them understand.
Is anyone interested in asking any question?
Yes, please. Can somebody run with this?
Hello everyone, my name is Piyusha Sharma. I am an assistant professor with DME. I just don't want to ask, but I would like to just add something over here. I have covered health communication with one of the leading news channels, and I covered health and science both at the same time. As sir said, it should not be, but it is taken together because they don't want individual journalists for every beat, especially when it comes to health and science. But there's one thing, as sir said, that we need to sensitize media editors and chief editors and people who own industry. But then that is something which is far-sighted, not very easy to achieve, but can we work on the other way, which I think can be easy in order to get more coverage of health and science, which I face as a challenge being a journalist when I was covering health was mostly when it comes to giving information in science and health, the terminologies, the research studies, they're so difficult to interpret even for a journalist, even if they are trained. Sometimes what happens is when the organizations, they want you to cover 4, 5, 6 news articles in a day. And mostly, if I talk about the platform, digital is one such platform which is covering health and science more than TV or even print. Digital is covering that more. We have different sections. Every day we are publishing 2, 3, 4, 5 stories of health and science. But when it comes for the writers and the journalists to When it comes to the writers and journalists to write those articles and to cover that news, it becomes very difficult to write one article in a day. So what I meant to say here was that in order to communicate health communication, if you're writing, sir, I have also covered Vigyan Prasar a lot of times, stories of Vigyan Prasar. So what I mean to say is we can also work in a way where we can simplify it from the organization itself who is trying to get the coverage. It will be very easy and it will give a lot of space to the journalists to write it down, because it is the challenge. It should not be, but it is a challenge that the companies want you to write more than 4, 5 articles a day. And if you want to maintain that quality, it becomes very difficult for the journalist and the writer to write them. So it could be a help from people who are doing those research, and they can maybe probably hire someone to simplify it in the way that people can understand that. So I think it will give us more coverage of health and science.
Actually, it's a very beautiful idea, which academicians should be grabbing on. I was having a conversation with Mriirs sir the other day about having these mid-level training sessions for journalists, and science journalism, I think, is probably should be started at that level rather than starting it at an UG level. Where you get the mid-level professionals to come in and sort of re-educate themselves, like most of us are doing now with Udemy and everything. So this is something, Kesh sir, you are here, you're one of those person who will matter a lot in academic policy making, and we have a platform like Ican which can diversify and actually look at these sort of opportunities in order to enhance what Mriirs sir is also here trying to advocate for this to come in. That's a very good idea. Thank you so much.
In fact, just adding to what you said, Maithili, I think collaboration with industry can make this conversation more vibrant and meaningful.
In fact, that is my reason, Prachi, why all of you are here. Otherwise, I know that initially it's difficult gelling, but I think we all have to get out of our comfort zones and our own language. We have to fall into that territory which is slippery for us, because only then we will be able to bring out something that is new, novel, and needed. That is, one important thing. Yes, please.
Just let me make a confession. The confession is that my university also runs tens of UG programs. But I think somewhere along the way we made a mistake. I think that the very fact that journalism education was earlier confined to PG.
PG, correct. We agree.
I think that by making it UG, what we have done is that we have in a way cut off a lot of people coming from different streams from coming into this discipline. Now a student of science, if that student of science was done as UG in science has come to science, I mean, they would have been the ideal candidate rather than a student of history trying to learn the ropes of science communication. Similarly, somebody with an economics background coming and learning, so that would have made more sense. But now that this has happened and this clock cannot be reversed, so let's try to make the best of it, and let's try to make, and I'm sounding a little too, I would say, optimistic, but let's make health communication and science communication more glamorous than political communication or sports communication. It's very important because, prior to COVID, health and education related news was confined to single digits in terms of percentage. But post-COVID, and that was perhaps among the very few, I would say, positives of the COVID corona pandemic, is that science and health reporting, education reporting has received a boost. Rural areas, people are going to find out, people are talking about vaccine, people are talking about vaccine resistance. This momentum should not be lost. And I think more and more students should be, even media schools, whether it is Manav, Rachna, DME, Makanlal, IIMC, we should all be somehow, I should say, encouraging our students to take up health reporting, take up science reporting. We should make it as part of an agenda, that because there is a great demand for trained, skilled people in these disciplines. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks, and also I echo exactly what KG sir has been trying to say, that it is time that we reinvent, and the silver lining, KG sir and everybody, is the fact that now NEP 2020 talks about the interdisciplinary focus, and so nothing is lost really. And we do see that a lot of us, like even I suffered from the math phobia, but I've actually started doing maths, and believe me or not, I'm doing class 8 maths again right now, because it's not so dangerous as it was then. So the whole idea is, because I've realized that maths is really the basis of a lot of research that one is trying to understand and analyze, especially in today's digital world. So with that, I think, you started the panel discussion by saying all is well, so we forgot about the SDG. We said, everything is okay, let's now solve other problems of the world. But I'm sure to the scholars there were those nuggets that you have been looking for, and with the media taking it up, our knowledge management repository at DME, and with even social media coverage that we will be giving to this panel discussion, I'm sure there will be more number of people who will be learning from what we talked about today. Thank you so much. My sincere gratitude to all of you. KG sir, Prachi, Kalyani left, Nimish sir, thank you so much, and my lovely audience, thank you once again. You missed such an important thing, Mriirs sir. हाँ, please देखिएगा, एक हमारा program बन रहा है, yeah. So thank you very much. Grateful to you. I would actually want to also formally congratulate the Department of Journalism and Media Studies, which is under Dr. Kiran Bala's, what should I say, control, I don't know, leadership. She's really this leader who drives everything, and more than a leader, for me, she's like this genie. So I tell her, today I was thinking, ho jayega. And I love that spirit, and God bless. Thank you so much for your presence here. Thank you.